everyone, welcome. My name is Janie, and this is Eastwind Books of Berkeley Author Spotlight. A little bit about the bookstore. We're located in downtown Berkeley. We've been around since 1982 as a community cornerstone for Asian American and ethnic studies literature. In addition to selling books, we also host book talks and panel readings, children book readings, and kind of provide a space to uplift Asian American and Pacific Islander writers, authors, and artists. So today we're honored to have Kenneth Tan here with us, giving us an author spotlight of his new book, Crescenciana. So Kenneth, can you, I know it's a little hard to pronounce at first, but thank you. So yeah, Kenneth, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started writing this book? Give us a little context about how it came into fruition.
Sure. Okay, yeah. Hi, everybody. All right. Hi, Janie. You know me. We know each other. My name's Kenneth. I don't know, Gemini. I'm from San Jose, California. Okay. Yeah. Went to Cal, go Bears. Bought all, I took Asian American Studies and I bought all my textbooks at Eastwind Books. So, gosh, I'm just so happy and my heart is like so full. Just thinking that the Eastwind, something that my grandma and I made is on the shelves at Eastwind, so that just makes me so happy. You were saying, so the other part was, I guess, like how this book came together, right?
Yeah, how you started writing it, what inspired it?
Okay, so what inspired it? I think to answer that, I got to go back to, gosh, I was living in LA, and gosh, my mom called me and said she was going to get knee surgery, right? And it was just her and my grandma living together at the time back in San Jose. So when my mom told me that, I was like, okay, I got to go back home, right? I quit my job and I moved back home to San Jose to help my mom care for my Lola. And so, with Lola, we were just kind of fell into a routine. We were just watching Netflix every day. And that's all we were doing. And then one day we were sitting at the kitchen table together and I asked my Lola, what do you want to do today? What do you want to do today, Lola? And she said, something that is for a purpose. So I'd heard, I don't remember if I read it somewhere. I must have read an article, I think it was a newspaper article, but it was about seniors doing art therapy. And I thought, okay, that's something we could try maybe. So I brought out like watercolor set, and that's how we started. So my Lola, she would make these watercolor paintings. And then after they dried, I go back and I draw her memories and her stories on top of them. And I called the project, the Lola and Kenneth collaboration. So that's where kind of this book started, because this book now this book is called Crescenciana. That's my Lola's name, and it's all of the pieces that we made together, kind of, in a piece together in a way that tells the narrative of Lola's life and our lives together. And I guess, gosh, I finished it maybe. It was the pandemic. So it was like 2020 March, and I still had, after my Lola passed, she left me all of her paintings, right? And I knew I was going to finish everything that she started. And so when the pandemic started and we had to go in quarantine, at that point, I was really lost. I'd only maybe worked on a few of her pieces the previous year. It was really slow goings and I didn't really have a direction, but when I had to stay inside, we all had to stay inside. I think that's when I was like, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I brought out all of her paintings and I finished them in 2021, and then 2020. Oh, is that right? No, 2020, I finished drawing on all of her paintings. 2021, I finished writing the book. Yeah, now here we are.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How did the collaborative process between you and your Lola look like?
Sure. So it looked like it was us at the kitchen table. Usually it was after breakfast. Breakfast was always, this is her mug. It was always a big milk tea.
Oh, cute.
All right. And thanks. And a pastry. She loved to have dessert for breakfast, or like a Hawaiian roll, 2 Hawaiian rolls, peanut butter, banana, something. So we'd have breakfast and I'd be playing the dishes and it would make me, oh gosh, make me so happy. Sometimes she'd say, okay, we'll do our work now. And that meant we're going to paint. So after breakfast, clear the table, bring out the watercolors, and then she would pick her colors. It was usually like whatever she was feeling that day, right? So I remember one time it was all these blue paintings because, it was like today, the sky was beautiful. And she was like, oh, the sky, wow, it's very blue today. And so she made all these blue paintings. So we do that, then they dry. She'd probably either take a nap at that point, play some solitaire. And then when the paintings were dry, I'd go back and I would either ask her what she was painting, or try and match it with a story that she told me or a memory that she shared with me.
Mhm.
And then after, so after Lola passed, and it was just, it was just me sitting here, I couldn't ask Lola, hey, what were you doing here? What should I do with this? It turned into like a Rorschach test or like a psychology test. Like I'd have to pick up each painting and then be like, what do I see? What
Yeah.
does this look like? And then try and match it to a story that she told me. So yeah, so that's what the
Yeah.
process looked like.
Oh, beautiful. Well, would you like to read or show us some part of your book?
I would absolutely love to, Janie. Yeah, sounds good. Cool. So this is, I'm going to read chapter 1 from Crescenciana. Okay. All right. Chapter 1. Chapter 1, Simple Beginnings. Crescenciana Tan, my Lola, mother of my mother, was born on August 12th, 1920 to Epifania Boscos and Mariano Macayan Carbonell. Now, what you need to know about Filipinos is that each of us carries a name with enough syllables to either write a haiku or name 2 other people. You should also know that our families come in 2 sizes, large or Catholic. Crescenciana had 1 older brother, Teodorico, and 2 older sisters, Juanita and Janisha. So it's safe to say her parents were religious, but I'm sure there were more, shall we say, devout couples in the village. They probably glanced at Crescenciana and her siblings and said to Mr. and Mrs. Carbonell, "How adorable. You can count your children on 1 hand. We have to use a rosary." The Carbonells considered home to be the village Villiesis in the province of Pangasinan in the Philippines. They lived in a nipa hut, or bahay kubo, that stood on stilts to the side of the main road that would, after World War II, be named the MacArthur Highway. It was inside their bahay kubo that Epifania gave birth to Crescenciana. Like the majority of Villieisinians, the Carbonells spoke Ilocano at home, and the children learned Tagalog and English at school. For that reason, when Crescenciana was born, the first words that welcomed her into this world were likely Ilocano. Ouch! In 1920, the Philippines was an American colony. For the Carbonells, this meant that Epifania and Mariano could hold jobs and provide a comfortable standard of living for their family while also running a farm. That wouldn't have been possible during the previous Spanish regime, when it was commonplace for the colonizers to seize Filipinos' lands. No wonder they took siestas. They must have been really tired after being so mean. The Carbonells owned 2 fields, each one located a mile away in a different direction from their house. Mariano and Teodorico grew rice on 1 field, and on the other, they grew tobacco, sugarcane, and vegetables. The rice was for the family's consumption, while the vegetables were sold by Epifania and her daughters at the village palenque. Eventually, when Crescenciana was older, she worked in the family's rice paddy. She once explained to me from memory how her family grew rice from start to finish. "You are in the field all day. You are bent over. Your knees ache. Your back ache. Oh, I miss it," she said. Although the Carbonell's farm yielded a steady supply of crops, it wasn't enough to finance their expenses. To make ends meet, Mariano had a job as a secretary at the village church, and Epifania hand-tailored clothes for deceased babies. And yes, we're going to pause and talk about that because I had questions too. According to my mother, at the time, there was a market for infant funeral gowns. Many women birthed their babies at home, and when infants were sick, they weren't always seen by doctors, so there was quite a high mortality rate. Whenever someone in town needed a funeral gown for their child, they would come knocking on the Carbonell's door because Epifania was the only person making them. The garments were white, embroidered, sequined, and open in the back like a patient's gown. They must have been similar to the ones Epifania sewed for the children she'd lost herself. Or maybe she hadn't made the funeral clothes for her own children, but she found it in herself to start making them for others. In either case, she crafted each piece by hand, gowns her townmates ordered but didn't want to need. Crescenciana told me, "We're not very poor, but middle class. When I was little, I usually go to church with the whole family, especially during the early mass at 4 o'clock, I guess, during the nativity. We go to church, and then on the 25th, we usually roast a small pig, that roasted pig. We called it the lechon. My parents could still afford a party during the holidays because they had also a good business." Between the farming and the vending, Mariano's secretarial job, and Epifania's tailoring, the Carbonells thrived together, one honest, hardworking day at a time. "We are a happy family," Crescenciana once said. It was as simple as that. I remember sitting at home with Lola. It was just the 2 of us in the house because Mom had embarked on the 1-hour drive from San Jose to San Francisco. In the South Bay and really in the greater California Bay Area, we call San Francisco the city. And to travel from the suburbs to the city for a purpose other than commuting is an event. Lola told me that my mom was on her way to see an attorney. Whatever the reason, it was over all of our heads. I remember Lola then smiling and saying to me, "We are simple people." She didn't mean that we're unintelligent. She didn't mean that we're foolish. What she was saying was that we are uncomplicated, our family. We have simple needs. We have simple dreams. We farm, we reap what we sow, we sell. We probably have more mango in our teeth than money in the bank, but we still smile. And when we do, you can see how sweet it is, our simple lives. It's been that way for us since the beginning.
Thank you so much for sharing with us that little snippet. Is there a particular art piece that you're fond of, or a particular story in the book that you're fond of?
Yeah. So in terms of art pieces, I mean, I can show you a couple. Excuse me. So the first one, I mean, so this is the piece that goes with the chapter. It's called a Nihan. And yeah, so it's a Nihan means harvest in Tagalog. And so, you know, I come from a farming family. Lola's family is a farming family. And so, yeah, this one's important to me because I don't know, it reminds me of gosh, all the hard work they did. She would just tell me all about, you know, being bent over all day and how much she loved working in the field, like actually loved the labor of making like one grain of rice. So I don't know, I'm particularly fond of this piece. And yeah, another one is called Blue Beach. So I'll hold it up here. Actually,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this is, I think, one of the first ones we tried working on canvas. And so this was the first one. So it's basically, it's my Lola at her favorite beach in the Philippines. Is called Blue Beach. So it's her like picking shells out of the water. And so the reason we did this was because one day, you know, she called me down. I don't remember what I was doing. She called me where she's like, Kenneth, I'm looking for a photo. I can't find a photo. It's me. It's basically, you know, it's me in the beach. I'm looking for shells. And I'm like, I've seen all your photos. I have no idea. Like, you know, like I went looking again, looked through all her photos again. But I was like, I got nothing, Lola. I don't know what to do. And so I thought like, maybe we could try and let's recreate it. And so my mom, actually, I had my mom like model for, I was like, Mom, can you just like, I don't know, I probably like dropped some Kleenex on the ground. I was like, pick that up and like took a picture of her doing that on my phone. And so when we painted it, when the painting was finished, I showed this to Lola and she said, that's the picture. That's it. That's the memory. And so that was one of those moments when I thought like, okay, let's keep doing this. This feels right.
Yeah. So beautiful about this book is like all these stories from your family and from your ancestors. It makes me think of the quote, like, no history, no self, and the importance of oral storytelling and passing it through generations, because, you know, it's hard to, especially for API folks, or especially for like folks like me, to kind of, you know, get those stories from my grandparents or from my parents, given that a lot of stories come with trauma and pain. So what does it mean for you to hold all of these stories of your Lola and your family, and moving forward with that?
Well, wow. So I really know that's, oh wow, such a good question. I just thinking about what you said about, you know, those generations. Gosh, how do you ask questions about trauma? You're right. I feel like the generations that came before, wow, they are cut from a special cloth, because you're so right. API, like my grandma's generation, our parents' generations, oh my gosh, they've been through some things. And how do you even begin to approach that? Because it's so important. Like, you know, you're right. It's so important that we document, we know, and we carry forward our histories, not, you know, to know ourselves, to know history and carry that forward and make sure that their stories survive. Gosh, how do you, yeah, there's a lot there. But sorry, to answer your question, like, what does it mean? That's kind of, what does it mean?
You personally.
Okay, for me personally, it's a way. I mean, I'm grieving. I'm going to be grieving for the rest of my life, and for me, it's a way keeping her stories present
Mm,
and documenting them and carrying them. It's a way for me to carry her forward and make sure I don't leave her behind. I think for me, it's a way to keep her alive and keep her present. I really do think people live in their stories, and I think that's why it's so important. Like you said, no history, no self. That we know them. I love. I'm just riffing right now, Janie.
go ahead,
Um,
go
you
ahead.
said no history, no self. I love that because I really think maybe again I'm going to generalize. I think API, we are very we cultures. If you ask me who I am, I think if you ask, someone who's API, who are you? We'll talk about we. Well, my family's
Mm,
from so and so. We do this, we do that. Um, and that's in contrast to me. We're also American. I think if I'm wearing my American hat and you ask me who I am, I'll talk in I. I grew up in San Jose. I like to do this, this, and this. But if you ask me who I am and I'm wearing my API hat, I can't explain who I am without telling you who my grandmother is.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Um, and it's so beautiful how you've been able to tap into and access that history and how it's so profoundly shaped yourself. Um, I
Thanks.
guess if the audience, were to, if readers would want to learn more, they definitely have to go check out your book and,
At
read.
Eastwind.
Yes, that Eastwind books. What do you hope the readers get out of this book? Like,
Cool. Okay. I'm, just kind of, I'm riding the wave and momentum of this conversation we're having. I think what I hope people take away from it is maybe, I hope the book is a reminder of the importance of our family's histories.
mhm,
I think that, and how gosh, what am I trying to say here? How much, it's what you said, no history, no self. If you're, how can you understand yourself if you don't know where you come from, right? The people you come from, um, and how important it is, especially if there's love there, the people you love, friends and family, how important it is to carry their stories forward. It will, for me, I guess, I'll speak for myself. It feeds me, it guides me. I'm still learning things about and from my Lola every day. Um, and so I hope that's something that people take away from the book. Other projects that I'm working on now, I mean, kind of like I kind of want to do this with my mom, like this process,
oh,
uh,
wow.
and learn more about her because we there are stretches of the book. My mom was like a co-investigator with me through this, like, because I had to, ask her a lot of questions about my Lola. My mom helped me fill in a lot of holes in the timeline, and I also learned about my mom in the process.
Mm,
What it was like to be Lola's daughter, because I know what it's like to be Lola's grandson, but I don't know what it was like to be her daughter. So I'd love to do maybe something like this with my mom. And
yeah, well, that's beautiful. And it's clearly a work of love, and vulnerability. And I'm so glad that you're able to share this with us. So
uh,
if folks are interested, please head over to Eastern Books of Berkeley, asiabookcenter.com to grab yourself a copy so you can learn more and hear more of the stories and see all the incredible art pieces. Thank you so much, Kenneth,
thank
for
you.
joining me today in this conversation. Are there any last thoughts from you?
No, thank you. This was super fun. Thank you, Janie. I'm just excited we're doing this. This is cool.
Oh, great. Okay.